So if someone has continual low B12, we target the stomach. We target the stomach to find out, well, why? Because it's constantly being circulated, a person can have no B12 in their diet for 30 years and not show a deficiency. It's all about, again, the hydrochloric acid to release the R protein and the intrinsic factor to connect with the B12, which is absorbed way down in the ileum, which is the last part of the small intestine. It was probably about 15 years ago now, I bought a book, and I'd heard about this book. I'd heard of references to the book. It was written in 1833, and I found out the name of the book and I found out the name of the author. It's Observations on the Physiology of Digestion by Dr. William Beaumont, and Amazon found it for me. It cost me 20 cents, but it cost me $20 by the time I got it, because it's the most fascinating story, and I'd heard references to it. So it must have been in the very early 1800s. Dr. William Beaumont was only 25 at the time, and he was called to an accident in a trading store. A young man named Alexis St. Martin had sustained a gunshot wound to the stomach. It was an accident. So this gunshot wound had blasted his stomach and his ribs, and Dr. Beaumont attended the young man, and he said he would not live, but they took him to hospital and patched him up the best they could. Twice a big tumour arose, burst, pus came out, and a 2-inch piece of rib. What an incredible body we've got. Just imagine if they'd given him antibiotics, it would have settled the tumour down, but where would the piece of rib stayed? See, that's why it's important to listen, watch and follow the body. Anyway, eventually he actually healed, but he healed with a hole in his stomach, and the hole was about here. Dr. Beaumont could have stitched it, but Alexis St. Martin said, no, I don't want you to do anything else to me. It had like a little flap of skin over it. But Dr. Beaumont saw his opportunity. He started doing experiments. He would get a piece of silk thread, put a bit of food on it, and put it in the hole. Take it out after an hour, look at it, put it back in, pull it out again. And he did extensive experiments on Alexis St. Martin. I think he had him at his house. He got him to just do, chop wood and do things around the house. And he meticulously documented his findings. So this book that I got, the first third of the book is the story, and the last 2/3 of the book are his meticulously documented experiments. I'm used to reading the King James Version of the Bible, and it's written in Old English, so it's not hard for me to understand it. But what he found was, and by the way, Alexis St. Martin ended up leaving, marrying, having a heap of children, and then Dr. Beaumont would contact him and say, look, do you mind coming back? I'll put your children through school, I'll put you in a nice house, and do a few more experiments on the whole. He lived till he was about 85. Dr. Beaumont said he thinks he would have lived longer if he hadn't drank so much alcohol. It's a fascinating story. What Dr. Beaumont found, that there were 5 things that caused the food to stay in the stomach 8 hours later. Not all the food, but portions of the food.